We doing everything they talk about. You know I'm everything a boss about. Not putting work and gotta.
I think it's about time we all realize that we've come a long way since the Urban Meyer days, right? Jim McElwain, the job was too big for him. Dan Mullen couldn't recruit good enough, but he could game plan. And now Billy Napier can recruit, but unfortunately his downfall was he couldn't game plan enough to generate more wins. Billy Napier is out at Florida, and we are back to the drawing boards. Back looking for another coach, another successor, right, to fill the shoes of what Steve Spurrier did, to fill the shoes of what Urban Meyer did, and bring this team, this organization, this university, my beloved Florida Gators, back to greatness. Happy Swarm Podcast. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the show. But more importantly, drop a comment and let's talk this thing out. All right, Gator Nation, listen. Billy Napier is gone. It's a lot of emotions. A lot of emotions when you think about it. 3-4 this year, all right? 22-23 record. It's all documented. You know, I'm feeling worried, right? I'm a little bit optimistic, frustrated at the same time, but also exhausted, but also hopeful, pending wherever that next head coach is, all right? So how did we get here, right? His plan process was just too slow. Right? We didn't get to his vision quick enough. He got all the resources. He got all the backing from the alumni. Everything was set up for Billy to be successful at Florida, right? He had more resources than Napier, more resources than Jim McElwain. He got a quarterback. At least we thought. He got one of the top recruits and quarterbacks in the nation, DJ Lagway, right? Hasn't really turned out to what we all thought it was going to be, right? So Billy Napier is gone at the University of Florida, right? You know, what's next? What's next to the program, right? Who does the next guy need to be? In my opinion, and Gator Nation, you drop a comment, let me know what you guys think. In my opinion, the next person, he needs to not just game plan, but he needs to recruit. He needs to win Florida back. We need a Billy Donovan and a Dan Mullen mixed into one, right? We need somebody that's going to attract recruits, really get back to – think about what Urban Meyer did, right? Urban Meyer had Tim Tebow and Cam Newton on the same roster at the same time. Urban Meyer had a defensive backfield with Joe Hayden, Janoris Jenkins, Ahmad Black, Major Wright in the national championship versus Oklahoma, right? Not to mention, you think about the front he had, right? Not just like the Pouncey twins, right? You think of the speed he recruited at, Percy Harvin, right? Jeff Demps, right? I forgot the other guy's name is losing me right now. But, like, Chris Rainey, right? He recruited Lakeland pretty hard. And we haven't seen that type of talent in a while. Now, granted, Billy recruited a good class. We got a nice young core, right? We got a nice young core. You can think about Jaden Ball, right? Dallas Wilson, Burnell Brown. You think about obviously DJ Lagway. You think about Miles Graham. You think about Cam James, LJ McCray. We have a nice core group of young talent. But this is a different ballgame. This is not your Urban Meyer Florida Gators. Even not your Jim McElwain Florida Gators or your Dan Mullen Florida Gators. And what do I mean by that is that now we have a transfer portal situation. That is going to be the dark cloud over the Florida Gators, over Gainesville, right, for the next couple of months until, one, we get a coach, and two, we see what happens. I believe it's January 2nd, which is the transfer portal window. Even though there's one window, man, we need somebody that's going to give us that life, that juice, right? Napier had it this year, right? And not necessarily juice, but he had the tools to be in a different spot. We should have won LSU, right? Miami was, again, bad play calling towards the end, a lot of turnovers, bad mismanagement, right? We didn't give Jaden Ball the ball enough earlier in the season, right? USF should have never happened, right? Penalties, discipline, right? So what does the future look like now? Well, one, whoever this next coach is, AD Scott Strickland is going to have to obviously go through a very thorough vetting process, right? Florida's a school that could sell itself. We don't need the big name, even though the big name would be good, right? Right? I know everyone wants Lane Kiffin. I'll take Lane Kiffin, right? And if you take Lane Kiffin, he's got to figure out two things. He's got to figure out, one, is DJ Lagway his guy? Is DJ Lagway going to be the Gators quarterback for the future, right? And if it's not Lagway, are you bringing over Trinidad Chambliss or Austin Simmons? One of them's got to come with Lane if Lane is the guy, right? I don't think Lane's leaving Ole Miss. I just don't see it. I don't see Lane Kiffin leaving a situation where he's about to take Ole Miss to the playoffs. Not to mention, if they go to playoffs, they're going to be going into that transfer portal window, right? We're either going to lose guys, or we're not going to be a quality team next year because we're not going to be able to attract the recruits because no one knows who the coach is, right? So that's the dark clouds hanging over Florida in regards to like what that next step looks like. Also, you got to fix DJ Lagway, right? Leads the SEC in turnovers, right? Interceptions thrown. You could tell he's lost his confidence. He's not really seeing the field right. You know, this is not the Lagway that was playing free last year. That wasn't afraid to make mistakes, right? Lagway's a little broken, partially because he's been hurt all the time. He haven't had the reps. You think about in the spring, he had the calf injury. If anybody watches sports, you know what calf injuries are these days. Future. I'm not gonna say the word, but it's on the bottom of your foot. Those type of injuries. So obviously they baby him in that. He didn't really get a lot of reps in the spring, right? And then obviously going to this year, you know, Lagway just hasn't been healthy. He hasn't had the reps. So it's a tricky situation, you know, in Gainesville. But Florida's one of the top jobs, right? Everyone talks about Penn State, rightfully so. Florida, you're in a hotbed for recruiting, right? The last 2 years, you just played the hardest schedule in the country. Hardly doubt you got to do that again for a third year with the rotations, right? Florida needs to get back to relevancy, right? In a good way, not necessarily a bad way, right? And unfortunately, Billy couldn't get us there, right? Like the guy, like what he was about, but again, just his process was too slow. So, you know, Florida Nation, drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think as we are now joining the likes of all these other programs. We're going and looking for a head coach, right? Now, with that being said, Florida, who's the next head coach going to be, right? Who is the next head coach going to be? I'm going to give you 3 names, and I want you guys to let me know what you think. I'm going to give you 3 names who we should keep an eye on, right? 2 names are going to be tricky, right? 2 names are going to be tricky, and this is, let's just say Lane Kiffin does not take the job, right? I firmly think we should go after someone like Joe Brady, offensive coordinator for the Bills. He was the offensive coordinator at LSU with Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase when they won the Natty. More recruits are going to want to play for a guy like that. He's a young coach, right? He's been in the SEC. He knows the landscapes, right? He knows what it takes, right? And if we're going to get anybody that's going to call their offense, right? We saw what Billy did, right? At least I know what Joe Brady has done. You see what he's doing with the Bills. You see what he did with LSU, right? So Joe Brady would be a pick for me. Another one, Cliff Kingsbury. Another name where you give him the keys to this potential monster with the young group that they have here with all the resources, right? Cliff Kingsbury could get this turned around, I think, right? You know, I think he is a guy people are going to want to come play for, right? So it's going to be easy to attract those guys. We could get back to the Florida days with attracting that type of talent, right? I think Cliff Kingsbury is a secret name you should keep an eye out for. And then you can't beat him, join him. Alex Golesh, USF. Listen, what he's done at USF the past couple of years, right? Taking Alabama to the wire, beating them once, right? And obviously what he's done with us, right? You see what he's doing now with USF, right? He's in the state. He has the connections, right? I think Alex Golesh should be the man for the job. I think. Those are the 3 guys I would keep an eye out for. Now, the 2 guys that are tricky when you think about Joe Brady, Cliff Kingsbury, is that they're in the NFL, right? If their teams make the playoffs, which they're both on playoff caliber teams in Washington and Buffalo, then it gets a little tricky, all right? But those are those are the three names I think they are. Joe Brady, Alex Golesh, Cliff Kingsbury. We'd love to see one of those names. But if not, I'm going to keep reading into it, kind of see what's going to happen. What's going to happen with us Florida Gators. So, again, we'll see how this all pans out. All right? Let's play matchmaker a little bit, right? And, again, Athletes Forum Podcast. Drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think. But subscribe to the channel, right? Let's play coaching matchmaker. I'm going to give you who's going to potentially be the next head coach for these schools coming up, right? Now, at the time we're recording this, schools that have not announced their head coaching vacancy that could open up are schools like LSU, Auburn, Florida State, Wisconsin. All right, so let's dive into this a little bit. First one, Oregon State. Who the hell is going to go to Oregon State, all right? It's been flirted about Ed Orgeron, right? He coached at USC. He has some connections out there. He can recruit. I can see him going to a school like Oregon State. What about Ryan Grubb? Ryan Grubb, offensive coordinator for Alabama. Obviously, he was the offensive coordinator in Washington when they with Penix and the team up there, right? And they went to the Natty, right? He's familiar with the Pacific Northwest. Offensive coordinator for Seattle. What about Ryan Grubb? Ryan Grubb for the Beavs, right? Let's go to Arkansas, all right? Try to go after Dan Mullen, but he already told you y'all need to give it to Gus Malzahn. Why not Gus Malzahn? Has that SEC pedigree, turned Auburn around, right? Why not Gus Malzahn? If not Gus Malzahn, what about Brent Key? What about Brent Key at Georgia Tech? You see what he's done there over the past couple of years, right? Big upset in Ireland 2 years ago versus Florida State. You see what he's doing this year. He's on the verge of an ACC championship, plays in some big games this year, right? What about Brent Key, right? Let's go to Virginia Tech. I think this is where you hear James Franklin. I think Virginia Tech is a team that needs that type of guy, that type of figure to spark that school again, spark that organization again, right? Because Virginia Tech really hasn't been like that in a while, right? You think about Sandstorm, right? One of the most beautiful entrances in college football, right? What about James Franklin for Virginia Tech? But here's a wild card. If you don't go James Franklin, what about Mike Vick? Why don't they pull a Colorado and bring in a guy that could be their Deion Sanders, that could be their Coach Prime, played at Virginia Tech, right? Legend at Virginia Tech. He's down at Norfolk State right now in the 757. He still has the Virginia connections. Who in Virginia wouldn't go to Virginia Tech if Mike Vick was the quarterback? What about Mike Vick, Virginia Tech? You guys drop a comment. Let me know what you think. Oklahoma State. Listen, I've been giving you guys 2 coaches per school. I can only think of one guy right here, and that's John Summerall. Right? That's John Summerall from Tulane. I think he could be the perfect guy for the job. Otherwise, I don't really know who fits there. I'm sorry, Oklahoma State. I don't really know who fits there. I think John Summerall will be looking to take that opportunity in the Big 12 if he went there, right, to leave Tulane. So what about John Summerall for Oklahoma State? UCLA. This is a tricky one. Because when you look at UCLA, you might have your coach currently on at your school right now when you think about either New Heisler or Coach Skipper, right? But if you had to think outside the box, right? If you had to think outside the box for this one, what about D'Anton Lynn, defensive coordinator for USC? Before he went to USC, he was at UCLA. He doesn't even have to move. He's right there for you. What about D'Anton Lynn? If not him, here's a wild card. What about Jesse Minter? D coordinator at Michigan when they won the Natty under Jim Harbaugh, and that's a D coordinator for the Los Angeles Chargers, right? You get a young buck in there that can rejuvenate that team, that fan base, right? What about Jesse Minter? If not, I think this is where you hear James Franklin again. I think Virginia Tech and UCLA are in the same situation where they need that spark. They need a big side, and they need a name, right? Who wouldn't take 10-2 every year? I know Virginia Tech and UCLA will. Right? They need a guy like James Franklin. I gave you 3 for UCLA because I couldn't think of 2 for Oklahoma State, but that would be my 2, right? D'Anton Lynn, Jesse Minter, James Franklin. Then we go to Penn State. Listen, the obvious choice from what people were saying, you could plug in Manny Diaz from Duke. He was recently there when they had success. Or you could go the Matt Campbell route, just like Josh has been promoting throughout his channel. Shout out to Pate State, right? Manny Diaz, Matt Campbell. But when you think about Penn State, you think about a school that sells itself. You think about a school that is not really known for the flashing lights of being a up-tempo, fast type of team. You think about ground and pound. You think about, again, Nick Singleton type running back, right? You think about Saquon type running back, right? Miles Sanders type running back, right? They really haven't had a great or relevant receiver since Jahan Dotson, right? So I think Penn State, you got to find a way to get physical. You got to find a way that's going to beat the Ohio State. You got to find a way that's going to beat Michigan. You got to find a way and build a bully that are going to beat these top teams. Now Indiana. You know who I think? Penn State fans, let me know what you think. Brent Key. I know I mentioned Brent Key for Arkansas, but Brent Key might be the mentality you guys need. Brent Key might be the coach you guys need. Brent Key might be the solution to Penn State. They got all the resources. They don't need a marketer. They don't need a campaigner. They need a football coach. No disrespect to Manny Diaz and Mike Campbell. I think they're football coaches too. But what about Brent Key? You talk about thinking outside the box. You get him to leave Georgia Tech, his alma mater, to come to Penn State, Happy Valley. Bring the run game to Happy Valley. It's a whole new ball game. Athletes Forum Podcast, you guys drop a comment. Let me know what you think, all right? We just played matchmaker and picked out all the coaches that are going to be the next and higher for these schools. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment. Athletes Forum Podcast. Subscribe to the channel.